Portugal has become one of the top destinations for expats looking for residency in Europe, and with good reason. There are many ways to pursue residency in Portugal. The barriers to entry are quite low, and it's a beautiful country with an incredible culture. But moving to a new country takes planning, it takes research, it takes a lot of paperwork, adapting to cultural differences, and a great deal of patience. That's why I'm so happy to have Victor Queiroz on the podcast today. Victor is an attorney. He's from Brazil. He moved to Portugal in 2018, and his company helps expats navigate the visa and relocation process. Before we dig in, hello, I'm your host, Vanessa Rosenblum, and you are listening to the Live and Invest Abroad podcast, where we help you figure out the where, why, and how of international living and investing. Without further ado, let's dig into the interview. All right. Hey, Victor, thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
I'm really excited to hear about your journey, first of all. So, you moved to Portugal in 2018. What are some of the pros as you see them of living in Portugal?
Oh, there are many. First of all, I would say security for sure. Living in Brazil is quite a different scenario. Living here in Portugal, comparing to how violent Brazil has become, unfortunately. Also, here we can find more like easy way of living here because it's much more easygoing, I would say, more calm. I can take my time to do things I like to do. I can just chill out a little bit more than in Brazil. So overall, I think that this scenario, this calm environment made me decide to stay here, me and my wife.
And where do you live exactly? Are you in Braga still?
No, we moved to Porto last year. So not that calm anymore, I would say, but still such a nice place to live there. But both Braga and Porto, they are really amazing cities to live in.
So, what did you learn about the relocation process that you wish you had known before you started that process?
Certainly that planning is that relevant. So planning, even if you decide to hire assistants, it's very important for you to have in mind the step that you need to follow for the move. This is very important, especially because sometimes things can take more time than you were expecting. For example, if you were looking for, and you will be looking for a place to live here for your rental, it can take time. The real estate market here is so heated that uh, it can take much more time than you were anticipating. So planning, go do your homework, go after information. This is something I was not able to do due to the circumstances. But if you have the chance, that's my advice. Go plan your and in a good way.
And you've turned that into a service that you help other people. You help other people with their move now. So, tell me what you're doing now, and tell me about Viv Europe.
Of course, I had gone through this whole process and I was able to see how stressful this process can be. I have a legal background, being a lawyer. I decided to start this business to help people navigate this process, make it easier for them to move to Portugal. Luckily, I found some good friends here, and it was actually three of us who decided to open the business. And here we are reaching our 6th year of Vive Europe, and things are going well, I would say.
So, Walk us through your process. So somebody comes to you, they want to move to Portugal. What part of this process do you handle for them?
So we handle all of this. There are plenty of steps. First of all, it's the creation of the Portuguese tax number, the NIF. Then it comes the bank account. And when I mentioned the planning stage, this banking that may seem like it's very simple, but unfortunately, that's not the case for most people. So we do help creating the bank account, also with the accommodation part, finding a place to live, help with the rental, the paperwork that's related. We do provide assistance in this area. Also, we work with external lawyers and they will analyze all of the documents just to make sure that the chances for the visa to be granted are pretty high. And we try to make it as personal as possible. That's the main goal because we know how stressful, how such a big step, right? Moving to a new country. So we try to be a psychologist at the same time, trying to go hand in hand through this process, but mainly try to make this as easy as possible.
Portugal has a reputation for being a relatively easy path to residency in Europe. Talk to me about the most common visas people use to re- move to Portugal.
Certainly, the most popular one is the D7 visa that's focused on those who have passive income. Retired people who have financial investment, for example, dividends, they would be the perfect match for the D7 visa. But also, especially in these last few years, the digital nomad visa has become really popular. So if you are, if you have a professional relation in America, for example, but wants to move to Portugal, the digital nomad visa is the best one for you. There's also the business visa, the D2. And this one, I love to work with people that are looking forward to develop a business in Portugal because there's so much of a learning experience that we had to go through to structure a business here in Portugal and make it in a way that Portugal will understand that the business is good for the country and then grant the visa. And maybe lastly, the golden visa. Golden visa is one most addressed to investors for those who want to invest money in this whole relocation process. And this golden visa has gone through many changes recently. Nowadays, it is not just as an example, it's not possible to apply for the golden visa by acquiring a property here that used to be possible some years ago. But I would say those four type of visas, they are the most popular nowadays.
Okay, let's break this down a little bit. The passive income visa, what is the monthly income that somebody needs to qualify?
It's not that high actually here in Portugal. It's one Portuguese minimum wage. So 870 euros as passive income is enough for you to qualify for the D7 visa.
Wow, that seems very doable for a lot of people, even if in the United States they're not living on their passive income. 800 and something a month is low, right? So that sounds great. But what would, so let's say an American couple, two adults, what kind of income should they need to expect to have to live a nice life in Portugal?
Such a good question. There's so many answers. First of all, it will depend on where in Portugal they're. looking forward to live. Certainly, if they go to Lisbon or Porto, they will need to, let's say, have at least maybe 4 to 5 thousand per month, considering the rental that has increased a lot lately. But if they are looking to a more, let's say, not that touristic area, just for example, Coimbra, there's the Silver Coast, maybe for a couple having between 3 to 4 thousand euros, I would say it's enough to live a good life here in Portugal.
And this is interesting because if you compare this to the Spanish visas, you need, what is it, 30,000 in the bank for the passive visa, or 3,000 a month as a single person, and then 1,000 per person to qualify for the digital nomad visa. So we talked about passive income. What about the digital nomad? What's the minimum income requirement for that visa?
So for the digital nomad here in Portugal, the amount of income is 4 minimum wages that I just mentioned. So it will be a little over 3,000 euros. And it's very similar to the Spanish one in terms of amount of income. But yeah, one of the reasons that the D7 is so popular is that you, if you have passive income, you still can work while you are in Portugal. While, for example, in Spain, there is a similar type of visa, it's the non-lucrative visa, and you would not be able to work while we were there. So there's so many reasons why choose the D7. This is one of them.
Okay. And what's the time frame from application to acceptance typically?
I would say around 3 months.
Okay.
For most of the cases, it depends on where you are applying for the visa. Those conflicts, they have specific workload and specific rules, so it can vary a little bit. But I would say roughly 3 months is enough for you to receive the visa.
Okay. So can you come to Europe on a tourist visa and apply while you're here? Or do you need to apply before you arrive?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not the case. You do
Okay.
need to apply in your home country, wait for this period before you can actually move to Portugal.
Got it. So you might have a couple back and forth. So scouting trip, spending a little time, make sure that's where you want to go back to your country, apply for the visa, wrap up your life there, and then move. How are your taxes impacted by these visas? If you're on the digital nomad visa and you stay in Portugal for more than 180 days in the year, do you become a fiscal resident? And then what are your tax implications?
When you move to Portugal and just after you live here for 183 days, you will automatically become Portuguese tax resident. And that means you will need to pay tax in Portugal. It's a worldwide, on your worldwide income. And by being American, you also need to pay tax in America. You are in this situation where you need to pay tax in 2 different countries. Luckily, there is an agreement between Portugal and the United States in which whatever you pay in America, it will become a credit for you when you pay your Portuguese tax. So this is usually how it goes. Whatever you pay in America, you will use it as credit in Portugal. If Portuguese tax are higher than in America, you pay just that difference. Otherwise, you will receive some sort of credit. But this is usually how it goes. There are many specific scenarios. There is the NHR. There's so many things that can come to place, but this is the basic rule.
Sure. And I think this is really important for people to understand because we Americans think they pay a lot in taxes, but then they move to Europe and they realize that Europeans pay more in taxes. And so they think that they'll either pay the same or less. And that isn't necessarily the case. So if somebody, let's say somebody's making 4,000, let's just use a round number, 5,000 a month in income, they're become a fiscal resident in Portugal. Now, I don't expect you to know all these numbers off the top of your head, but do you have some idea of what the tax rate would be? And then somebody could do that comparison. And if you can't do that off the top of your head, I can add that to the show notes. I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, actually, that will probably fit. The Portuguese tax is divided into brackets. So if you, depending on your income, you'll be fitted in one specific bracket. Probably it will be in the 20th or 30th% tax rate. So either 20 or 30% you would have to pay as tax. But yeah, this is, I would say, in Europe overall, taxes are much higher than in the US. And that goes along with that planning that I've mentioned before. So not only the relocation itself, but also the things that goes together with the relocation, taxes, shipping, belongings to Portugal. So all of these homework, they are very relevant so that you won't be surprised during the process.
And I do think it's worth mentioning that you get a lot for your taxes in Europe. If you just looked at what you spend in health insurance in the United States, and then you compare what you might pay in additional tax, you're probably coming out ahead, even with the exchange rate. Let's talk about healthcare a little bit. As a foreigner coming in, are you required to pay for private health insurance or do you get enrolled in the public scheme?
Nowadays, you do need to enroll into a private healthcare for the appointment that you will have to take here at IMA. So here, this last step of the process, you need to provide proof that you had enrolled into private healthcare for 1 year. So for 1 year, you need to have your private insurance. During this period, you can obviously apply for the public healthcare. Then really good here in Portugal. I use it quite often. And in my experience, I never felt that they are a source of problem with the public healthcare. So you can decide if you want to continue paying the private healthcare that is not that expensive at all, or just use the public one.
Yeah, I do you know offhand what insurance for one person a month runs? I love telling Americans this because it makes their mind explode. For full coverage, and when we talk about insurance here, we're talking about no copay, no max out of pocket, no deductible, no lifetime limits. It's like you go, you show your card, and you don't pay anything unless
Exactly.
maybe in a couple little areas. I remember I had to get medicine. We lived in Algarve for a little bit, and my son was ill, and I paid for antibiotics with pocket change, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, how
Yeah.
is this possible? Sorry, I took over. What is the going rate for one person to have health in private health insurance?
But yeah, this is usually really mind blowing when speaking to Americans. The difference is a lot. I myself, I pay my private health care insurance and I pay 40 euros per month. Yeah,
Wow.
it's really that affordable. Of course, depending on your specific situation, you can be a little more or a little less, but that won't be that of a difference. It's really that cheap. And just for example, you were mentioning your antibiotics. My wife, she has a chronic disease and she needs to go after her, get her medicine once a month, if I remember. And I remember that in Brazil, this it was so expensive. Oh my, it was really expensive. And she get in Portugal for free, just on the public system. And it is one of those diseases where the Portugal will provide free assistance, and I'm all about compliments when it comes to the Portuguese healthcare.
Fantastic. Yeah, and dental care too. I remember I had to have impacted wisdom tooth taken out, which was a really big deal, and it cost me 220 euros. I was like, "No
It
problem."
is,
That was as a tourist, basically. I didn't have insurance, just come off the street. I have this issue I need it done. Easy peasy, really professional, excellent quality of care. It's great. So you're talking to a lot of people who are probably coming mostly from what, America, Canada, the UK. What are some of the cultural differences that they comment on or things that they need to adapt to when they move to Portugal?
okay. First of all, first one certainly is the level of customer service here in Portugal. They are really different from those countries. Here, as I mentioned, people are more on the easygoing way of doing things, and they have to embrace it. So it will take more time for you to be served when you are in a restaurant, for example, or any sort of service that you will enroll. So it takes more time. Things here, you have to get used to it. I had to go through the same path. Being Brazilian, we are have more similarities with the United States than Portugal in this regard. So just try to relax. will will take some time, but this is something that is very different. Shock when moving to Portugal. There is the language barrier can exist depending on where you decide to live. If you decide to live in Lisbon or in Porto, you find less struggles to communicate because people do speak English really well in those big cities. But if you go to the rural areas or maybe in the center of Portugal, you can find some difficulties in communication, but not that much. People are speaking English more and more here in Portugal. So I guess that if you can learn the basics, always help Portuguese. Mm, But I guess I would say that the way of providing services, the customer service, this is where people do feel that shock moving to Portugal.
Yeah, and this ties in with the banking. I've been through this too. So let's talk about what it takes to open a bank account in Portugal, because this I know will probably surprise Americans.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you will need to provide many documents, flash information, and then this is just to start the process. So we will need to provide your passport, your source of income, tax information, and then the account will go to that compliance team, more waiting, and maybe they will even ask for more documents or information while the account is in the compliance. And only then you receive your IBAN. This is your bank number. That doesn't mean that the bank account is activated. It's just that it exists. So more waiting game. So it can take 1, 2 months for a simple bank account to be created. And this is, I can't even believe it that it's still that of a bureaucratic procedure. Just going back to the last question regarding those things that Americans can feel it's quite challenging. Bureaucracy. Oh my. There is bureaucracy here in Portugal. Things they go on a much slower pace. Paperwork, signing documents. There's so many.
They apply
Um,
like lots of stamps, right? It's a stamp here, then
stamps.
you have to take it over here and send it here. The joke is always you can get one thing done a day. And this is the same in Italy and in Spain as well. If you have bureaucratic things to do, you get to do one a day before things close at lunch. That's it. And the next day you can do the next thing, but that's it. You're not getting 3 or 4 things checked off your list. Not going to happen.
Forget about it. Forget about it. That's a good point. Things they do close at lunch. So you have to do it in the mornings. Yeah, that's a very good point. So it takes time. It takes time. And even those simple things that you may consider it simple can take much, much more time. Even for the bank account, there is always a risk for the bank not to be open. So they can refuse the application despite your situation. So yeah, this is one of the reasons why it's important to find some reliable assistance, because knowing where to start process, which banks are more uh, friendly in terms of documents, this is very important.
Yeah, and I just want to comment, the reason this is such a big deal is Europe is very stringent about their know your customer laws, unlike the United States where you hand them your social security number and you can open an account. You can have multiple accounts, super easy. Europe is really wants to know where your money came from and whether you're laundering money. And so that's the reason behind it. Unfortunately, they've just really draw out the process. So something to be aware of. I know I opened a bank account in Andorra and I felt like I was applying to be in the CIA. I'm like, how many years of tax documents do you need? What else could you possibly need from me? And I wasn't prepared for the process. If I had been prepared going in, it would have been a lot easier and I would have been less insulted, frankly, by some of the questions. But now I know and now I'm prepared. But those are the things you just, you don't know what you don't know. Right?
Exactly.
Let's talk about finding a rental property. Are there certain websites that are reliable that you can go to? Are there fake listings you have to watch out for, homes that aren't really owned by the people who are showing them? What do you need to know about finding property in Portugal?
There are those websites that are more popular. Idealista for sure is the most well-known website for finding rentals. There are some scams I won't lie to you, especially now with the amount of expats moving to Portugal that don't know the language, the rules, the laws. It's pretty much easy for some people, unfortunately, to create a fake situation. I myself, I almost fell into one of them when like Portugal. Luckily, I did not transfer the money, but it happens. In terms of navigating this process, I would say that best approach is to find a broker or someone that you trust to handle the process for you, at least to let you know which are the properties that are listed and they are verified. So they will know where to guide you in terms of running this process. And of course, it can be overwhelming sometimes because there's so many people looking for properties. And when you send one message, there will be 1,000 messages before yours for the landlord to read. And it is a challenge. It is a big challenge going through the real estate part and knowing that you need to rent your property before you apply for the visa. That just adds more complexity to the process.
Wait, so let me clarify this. So you need to apply for the visa in your home country, but you need to have already rented a property in Portugal.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm so glad we're talking about this. I never would have expected that was part of this process. Okay. So you end up renting a place, you let it sit there, and then you go back to your home country. Okay. Wow.
Yes, it is. It is. It is.
Okay.
I cannot even. I don't have words for how.
There's sort of words for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
it- uh, there is such a commitment that you are renting a place for usually a 1 year period when you decide to go through the rental process. And then you have your rental agreement with you. The rental is registered at the tax authorities here, and you start paying rents. And only then you apply for the visa. If the visa gets rejected, that won't be the case, but let's say in theory, you are in a very complicated situation because the landlord doesn't care about your visa application. He just is interested in getting the rents. So yeah, this requirement, I really don't understand how strict, how nonsense, at least from my view, this is.
So would a strategy be to find something cheap and little that you're not really going to live in? It's just almost like a fee for you to pop back and forth in, and then knowing that by the time the year is up, you will have received your visa and you will have had some time to look for a better place. Don't Maybe don't find your dream home and then go back home to apply for your visa.
That's a really good plan, and and the good approach to to handle the process, because the less strict, the less picky you are, the easier it will be for you to find a place. There are not so many places available at the market. So if you have this mindset of just getting one property that is just okay, or even okay, it's a property, you know that you'll be staying there when you arrive, but you have the chance to go visit other properties while you were there. I think this is the best approach.
That makes sense. Now, in Portugal, can you rent a furnished property? Do properties come with a kitchen, or is it like in Italy where you have to move in your own kitchen?
It depends. I would say 50-50. Some of the properties they come with furniture, some they come clean, no furniture at all. I think that when the property is managed by investors, they tend to come with no furniture whatsoever. Be- And but when it's a old property that belongs to an old woman, normally there will be those kind of old furniture. Those, it's nice being able to move to a property where you don't have to buy all of the stuff you need to live in. But this is my what I think that happens. Some of them they come with furniture, some don't.
Okay. And let's spot some pricing. So let's say in a suburb of Lisbon, maybe not in the center, but in a residential area outside of Lisbon, a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment. What are we looking at possibly?
Um, I would say that probably around 1,500 to 2,500 euros. That would make sense.
Okay. So nice, updated kitchen, clean
Yeah,
building, decent
yeah.
amenities, not the high end, but not something in the ghetto. Okay. Something in the
Exactly.
middle. Okay. All right. So 1,500 to 2,500. And then if you wanted like a house or a townhouse, like a villa type property, a little bit, maybe a little bit further out, near good schools, the suburb, what are you expected to pay?
In this situation, you can find good properties, of course, much cheaper. I would say that you can range from 800 euros to 20 to 1,200 euros.
Okay.
That so
So location, as you get farther out
yeah,
or farther out from the center of Porto, you can definitely find more affordable properties that are
for
nice.
sure.
Hey, I just wanted to pop in here and let you know that if you are looking for property in a foreign country like Portugal or Spain or Italy, you need to find a local trusted real estate expert to help you, which can be hard to do if you are new in town. That's why I created the buyer matching questionnaire. Fill out my form, the link is in the description below, and I will personally connect you to a local trusted real estate professional who can help you navigate the rental or home buying process. This is a free service to you. And the best part is when you close on a purchase of a property, I'll give you up to $1,000 back. So fill out that form and let's work together to find your dream property in your dream location. Okay, let's get back to the interview with Victor. What are the terms of a typical rental agreement?
So usually that's how it goes. You will have to pay for the first and the last rent. So two rents you pay already at the beginning. Also, uh, depending on the fact that you have a guarantor, that can change how many rents you have to pay in advance. So if you don't know anybody here in Portugal to be your guarantor, you should have to pay around two additional rents in advance. So usually you have to pay four. So the first and the last one for everybody. This is how it goes here in Portugal. And two extras if you don't have a guarantor here in Portugal.
So guarantor, so like a reference, right? Or
Exactly.
okay,
Exactly.
perfect. Okay. And then what are the typical terms? So for example, I know in Spain, it's like a 5-year contract. 1 year after the first year, the renter can give a notice to leave, but the landlord can't kick you out. How does that work in Portugal?
Portugal is 3 years.
Okay.
Not, yeah. So the tenant can always send a notice to the landlord to leave the place. Okay. If, in this case, for example, where you chose a property that was not the best one, but let's go for it, you always have the chance to send this notice to the landlord. And if for in at least 3 months of contract, then you can leave the place and look for another property. This and what the landlord cannot decide to not renew the contract, for example, for at least 3 years. So you can stay there for 3 years at the least if you like the property.
Okay. What are some of the other considerations if somebody was thinking about Portugal versus Spain? What are some other things other than cost of living that they might want to consider?
Okay, so in my opinion, those who choose Portugal to live, they understand that here it will be more easygoing in terms of tranquility. So I have this view that in Spain, still European country, they all have this standard of living, which is really good, much more slow paced if you compare to the United States. But Portugal, I think it's a little bit more tranquil than Spain. I would say a little bit more cheap overall. So the cost of living here is a little lower than Spain. I have this impression. They are really similar, I would say. There are some things in Portugal that are more expensive, others in Spain. For example, I know that energy here in Portugal is very expensive. It's expensive. Also, fuel for the car, if you go to the gas station, it is much more expensive here in Portugal than insane.
I'm curious what the Portuguese think about all of these foreigners coming in and it being such a hot spot. Is there a resistance to this wave of immigration?
I don't think so. I think that Portugal is still a open country to expats. So people from everywhere are applying for visas to Portugal, and visas they have been granted. The thing is that Portugal doesn't have that big of a structure to handle so many applications, so many people coming to the country. So you may find some delays, you may find some backlog. Your timing can be changed due to this situation, the moving time, but it's still a very much open country. People are usually very welcoming here towards immigrants. I think that, yeah, Portugal is a good place to live if you are an expat.
So this was really helpful. I feel like we covered a lot of ground and you gave a lot of insightful information. I had a few aha moments, things that I didn't know, and I used to live in Portugal. How do people get in touch with you if they want to tap into your resources?
Thank you, Vanessa, for providing me the opportunity to speak to your public. We do have a website. It's viseurope.com. There you can find not only a way to get in touch with us, but we try our best to provide some good content. We are always updating our blog. So if you have any question regarding what it is to live in Portugal, tech, housing, you can find some good information there. And our website is where people usually get in touch with us.
Perfect. I will make sure to put that in the show notes and on the screen. Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. It was a pleasure.
So, what do you think? Is Portugal perhaps the right fit for you? I'll include Victor's information in the show notes. Definitely reach out to him if you would like help with your visa process. I'll also be interviewing a woman who helps families navigate the schooling options in Portugal. And when that video comes out, I will tag it up here. So take a look at that as well if you have kids and you're not sure what schools to choose in Portugal. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to fill out our buyer matching questionnaire if you are looking to invest or purchase property in a foreign country and you would like to find a trusted English speaking local real estate expert to help. I will connect you to somebody in my network and give you up to $1,000 back at closing. Until next time, keep traveling, keep exploring, and keep pursuing the life you dream about.